Hey folks, and welcome back to another Division 2 video. In this one, I'm going to go over my full process of creating a build in Tom Clancy's The Division 2 from an idea all the way to a fully optimized build. Let's jump into it. Making builds in Tom Clancy's The Division 2 is personally one of my favourite parts of the game, and there's a huge range of builds that you can potentially put together. Whether it's making a build to solve a specific problem, or specific type of content, or maybe you just want to try something completely different and outside of the box, breaking away from the meta. Previously, I have been asked to make a video putting together a full build from scratch in the comments of a few of my guides and on stream, which, if you didn't know, I'm one half of a stream duo that plays a Division 2 every Monday, Wednesday, and other games on Saturday. I'll link that in the description below. And this is a video I've always kind of wanted to make, but I know it would be a long one. I do have an idea of how to make it, so keep an eye out for that in the future. But I thought it would be a good idea to make a shorter video breaking down my process of how I go from the initial idea or concept of a build all the way to a finished product. I'll also add chapters and timestamps to the video and in the description if you're looking for anything specific. To start with, all builds start as an idea or a concept. This might be sparked by a talent, a named piece of gear, weapon, or an exotic that you think could have some potential. For example, the exotic assault rifle, the Bighorn. It's fine on its own, but it's not amazing, just fine. So I put it together with a DPS assault rifle build with a strong focus on headshot damage and weapon handling. This took advantage of and buffed the second part of the Bighorn's talent, Big Game Hunter. Headshots grant 2% headshot damage, stacks up to 50 times. Once at full stacks, 10 stacks decay every 4 seconds until all stacks have been removed. Headshots delay decaying of stacks. So the idea was to take this part of the talent and buff it with as much headshot damage as possible. And because of this, critical hits were pretty much useless, so I didn't need critical hit damage or chance. These would have been a waste, so to back up the headshot damage, I used weapon handling. This made headshots easier to land with the accuracy and stability bonuses, but it also gave the build more reload speed, increasing its overall DPS. Now, this was by no means a meta-shattering build, but it was just a different way of playing, and I really enjoyed putting it together, testing different brands, talents, and trying to increase its overall damage. This is just an example of seeing something as simple as part of a talent and seeing some potential worth trying and testing. Once there's an idea, or I know what kind of build I want to make, I then start looking at the talents and the brand sets of what would work best with that build. I usually do this by heading to the crafting bench and using it to look through the different brands as well as their brand set bonuses to get an idea of which brands would give me the best results. Often I'd actually put pen to paper or open a notepad and do a little bit of quick math while I'm doing this. Then I'd head over to the recalibration station for the same purpose, but this time with talents. At the recalibration station you can actually see talents as a list and go through and read exactly what each one does. I always start with the brands and talents because they're static and the easiest part of a build to put together. For example, if you add a piece of Fenris to your build, you will always get exactly 10% assault rifle damage. Same with talents, they always do exactly what they're supposed to do with no variation, unlike core and minor attributes, which can roll with different values. Now there's a plan and an idea of which brand sets and talents will give us the best results. I use an empty loadout slot to start building a rough layout of the build. To start with, I always dig through my stash. I have a habit of storing things that I find with decent rolls, even if I don't need it at the time, so it's always worth having a look through, to see if there's anything with the right brands, talents, or attributes. Once I've been through the stash, I then head over to the crafting bench and I start crafting a few pieces to fit the other slots that I have nothing for yet. When I do this, I'm not looking to get any perfect pieces, and most of the time I kind of ignore the attributes while I'm crafting these. I'm just looking to put together a rough version of the build, having each slot filled with an item I want in it when it comes to weapons, brands, and talents. And what this actually is more of a shopping list while I'm out farming for new pieces. Speaking of which, now we have a rough loadout of the build and a shopping list so to speak, it's time to start farming for better pieces. This is the part of making a build that can take the longest depending on your luck and RNG. It's also where I start to think a little bit more about the attributes on the gear. At this point I usually have a good idea of what I'm looking for. If I'm making some kind of crit build, you know you need critical hit, chance and damage. Or if you're looking at some kind of sniper build or headshot oriented build, you want more headshot and weapon handling. Same for a skill damage build, you know you're looking for skill damage and skill haste to get the most out of that. Or if I don't have a clear idea in mind, it's also where I start testing things out to see how they perform. So this is where I head out and start farming for better rolls for each slot and taking advantage of the targeted loot system. Usually looking for one good attribute and the talent I'm looking for on a chest and backpack, or at least one good attribute on any other piece. This is because I keep in mind the second unwanted or low attribute can be recalibrated straight to a max roll. So as long as I find a piece of gear or weapon with one wanted attribute, ideally over 75%, that means any piece of gear or weapon can have one good roll and then the other unwanted roll completely maxed out to whatever else I'm looking for. After farming for some better gear pieces and weapons, the next step is to start optimizing the build and maxing out as many attributes as possible. You can do this by gathering optimization resources by deconstructing gear, weapons, completing projects, control points, dark zone landmarks, as well as a load of other ways. For more information about optimizing gear and weapons, check out my beginner's guide going over everything you need to know about optimization, from how to do it, the resources needed, and how to get them. I'll link that in the top right here, as well as in the description below. And with all of this, you should be able to take an idea all the way to a fully optimized build. So to summarize, I start with the idea for a build, use the crafting and recalibration stations to look at the brand sets and talents to get an idea of what would be most optimal for the build. I then use what I can find in my stash or craft a rough version of the build, focusing on the brands and talents, then save it to an empty loadout slot. I go out, I start farming for better pieces than I already have saved, focusing on attributes, then recalibrate the worst attribute on that piece of gear or weapon, followed by optimizing any leftover attributes until they're max or I'm happy with the build. And that's everything, a rough step-by-step process of how I go about putting together a brand new build. And also with that, that is everything for this video. If you'd like to see a longer video where I go through making a build from scratch, let me know in the comments below. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have and you enjoyed it, giving the video a thumbs up can help the video reach more Division agents, and don't forget to subscribe for more Division 2 and looter shooter content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.